Before getting ahead of myself, you should know this isn't another video telling you to skip your morning coffee or to cancel Netflix. Because let's be honest, we've all been told the same story. Save diligently, cut your spending, and eventually you'll be rich. But here's the thing, saving money alone wouldn't make you wealthy. Not today, not in this economy. The math doesn't add up. We are told to be prudent, to sip slowly from smaller cups, to fold the corners of our lives tightly until they fit into the box labeled frugal. And yes, there's wisdom in restraint. But here's the quiet contradiction. Restraint alone cannot build a future wide enough for dreams. Most of us carry the familiar belief, if I just save enough, things will unfold. Yet, those who truly step into abundance know another pattern, one harder to see, because it asks not only for discipline, but for daring at the right time. So today we're going to break that myth apart. First, I'll share a few stories, my own, of how I had to learn this the hard way. A glimpse into the habits I wrestle with and a turning point that arrived through a friend. And then we'll open the map to dive into the real blueprint of wealth, investing in yourself, creating separate new income streams, and building assets that multiply. And finally, I'll show you how you can start applying these ideas right now without waiting until you feel ready to move forward a life less defined by scraping and more by creating. I want to start at the beginning. When I was younger, I thought the answer was in the small ledger of daily savings. When I got my first job after college, I did exactly what I was told. Live small, save big. I clipped coupons, refused small luxuries, and prided myself on iron will. I skipped trips, passed on nice meals, drove the same old car. But the numbers never seemed to move the way I expected. My savings grew slowly, painfully slowly, while everything around me kept getting more expensive. Inflation quietly ate away at the progress I thought I was making. I was doing everything right, yet it didn't feel like I was getting ahead. But the numbers never danced, only sat there waiting. The end of each month whispered quietly in disillusionment. You aren't moving forward, only holding still. And a bit later, I was older and a little wiser. I worked at a job where I kept saying no to dinners, to small gatherings, to anything with a large price tag. I thought to myself, this is discipline. This is how the wealthy must live, way below their means. But all I built was a sense of deprivation, a life too narrow to feel alive. The irony was painfully staring back at me in the mirror. I was saving for a future I no longer wanted to inhabit. A few years passed, and eventually my will gave way and I splurged. At least, that's how it looked at the time. I spent a few $1,000s on a camera setup, which was a huge chunk of my savings. Many folks told me it was irresponsible. My photo gear eclipsed in cost both my savings and the price of my car combined. But that camera became more than a toy. It became a tool. I started taking on small freelance gigs. A budding hobby purely through luck led to some more opportunities. And before long, that one purchase had paid for itself several times over. And that's when I realized some expenses aren't really expenses. They're seeds. And then, eventually, there was an old friend. He became in time a mentor of sorts. He once invited me to a seminar he was attending. He said I can bring a guest at no charge. The catch? I would need to cover the travel, the hotel, and the meals. At first, I recoiled. Too expensive, I thought. It felt extravagant. Just a weekend event with a steep price tag when you added up all the costs. But something in me said, go, and so I did. And that weekend, listening to voices who had walked paths I couldn't yet imagine for myself, I felt something shift. The insights I gained from some of the most respected voices in their fields shifted the way I approached my work, and before long, my efforts were recognized by my superiors. That one weekend, those unnecessary hotel and restaurant bills ended up being one of the best investments I ever made. The cost of that trip was since eclipsed many times over by the opportunities it unlocked with time. If you're wondering how you can apply this in your own life, a good place to start is by realizing that saving is not the enemy of lifestyle. It is the soil. It's dark, patient, and quite unglamorous, but without it, nothing can take root. Think of wealth as a tree. Saving is just the seed. It's necessary, but a seed alone doesn't give you shade or fruit later. Assets are the branches and the fruit. They are the bearing parts of that tree. That's what actually multiplies. Your holdings can be a multitude of specific things. Anything that increases in value while you sleep that doesn't require your direct input and effort. For me, I realized that putting aside what I can and not seeing it as the end result, but as a groundwork, not the harvest, is where I needed to be. I started simple. I set aside a percentage or a fixed amount of my income each month, not just for savings accounts, but for investments. And you could do the same. Don't wait until you feel like you have enough. Even small amounts compound. When the trade-offs seem unworthy of justification, I remind myself that the time will pass anyway. I might as well take advantage of it. If you can, lean toward broad, low-cost index funds or other accessible ways where your money can start working for you right away. Unfortunately, this is where most people stop. But that would be to mistake soil for the whole garden. Saving makes the space, but it does not fill it. Because here's the reality. No matter how disciplined you are, you can't outsave inflation forever. But if you're building assets, you're shifting from playing defense to playing offense. That's the turn that creates freedom. This is the only way to escape the quicksand of rising costs of things. My other critical realization was that the richest asset you carry is not in any bank. It is your mind, your skill, and your creativity. This is the part most financial gurus don't emphasize enough. The greatest asset you'll ever have is you, your skills, your creativity, your ability to solve problems in ways others can't or wouldn't. When you grow that, doors open. And those doors often lead to income streams and opportunities that saving alone could never unlock. Whether you find those things to be books, courses, seminars, quiet mornings spent learning, these are not indulgences. They are seeds. Invest in mentorships and tools, things that stretch you and allow you to contribute more value to others over time. It could be learning a new digital skill, taking a certification, or even traveling to events where you meet the right people. The cost feels heavy up front, but the return on that knowledge, on those connections, is often exponential. Realize that when you invest in yourself, you're not buying a product. You're widening the vessel that will hold everything else. It's the one investment guaranteed to travel with you into every circumstance. Because unlike a stock or a property, no one can take away what you've built inside yourself. And the more you grow, the more resilient and adaptive you become in a changing economy. That is wealth in its most durable form. But even after you do all that, at some point, wealth must take the form beyond your hands. Assets that breathe on their own, whether it's businesses, investments, or property that introduces positive cash flow, those become companions on your journey. Relying on one paycheck is like trying to balance on one leg. Eventually, you'll get knocked off balance by inevitable gust of wind. Multiple income streams are like adding more legs to the stool. Whether it's freelance work or small side hustles, digital products, or investments, each one adds a layer of stability. So begin where you can, whether it's a side project, a modest index fund, a small rental. Don't wait for perfection. Begin with presence. Look at what you already know or do. Can you freelance your skills? Teach something online or offer tutoring service. Turn a hobby into a small revenue stream. Even modest income can build momentum that compounds over time. True wealth is about creating options and time. It is not about constant labor, but about creating channels that flow even while you rest. It is what turns effort into ease and presence into possibility. Because wealth isn't just about security, it's also about resilience. Multiple streams mean that when one dries up, you're not left stranded. It's not about hustling 24/7 as hard as you can. It's about building a system that keeps you steady. And so we circle back. The old belief, save enough and you'll be rich, was always only a half story. The pain point we started with was simple, that nagging pressure to save our way to freedom. Saving is the soil, yes, but a garden asks for more: planting, tending, and a dash of daring. The real growth happens when you dare to invest in your own future, in your own knowledge, in your ability to create, in assets that can breathe and expand on their own without your necessary contribution all the time. I return often in memory to that weekend with my friend, the mentor who nudged me to spend more than I thought I could afford. I hesitated, worried about the costs, the hotel bill, the meals on the road. They felt heavy at the time, but what I carried back home, the insight, the courage, a new direction. The return on that investment has repaid itself 100-fold and dwarfed the expense many times over. And in truth, more importantly, it planted its seed in me. Wealth is not built in the act of holding tight, but in the courage of letting go where it matters. That's the hidden blueprint. Invest in yourself and the dividends will find you. If you've ever felt the weight of saving without growth, perhaps it's time to widen your vision, to see that the architecture of wealth isn't a single brick of discipline, but an unfolding structure of soil, seed, tending, weeding, watering, and that harvest of the sweet fruit at the end. Saving matters, yes, but investing in your skills, your opportunities, your growth, and your connections, that's the real lever. And perhaps, just perhaps, wealth isn't only about numbers on the screen. It's about building a life with enough options and space to say yes when the right doors open, when the right opportunity knocks on the door. And maybe that's the quiet truth. Wealth is less about what you hoard and more about what you dare to grow. If this reflection found resonance in you, you can help by subscribing, sharing it with someone who needs to hear this message, or clicking the like. Thank you for watching. I'm Leon, and I'll see you in the next one.